Hello, everyone. So you've decided to take the plunge and you're starting to allow or sit with the anxiety. You're trying not to fight the symptoms anymore, the thoughts, the feelings, the sensations. You're trying to actually put theory into practice, but it feels really hard. And perhaps for a lot of you, and this comes through a lot in the comments, it feels like it's getting worse. So what the hell? You've listened to me say you've got to allow this in order to recover. We can't resist it. We've got to accept it. Claire Weeks says the same thing. So why on earth does it feel like it's getting worse? And where are you going wrong? So that's what this video is about. It's trying to give you some reassurance that you are on the right track, even though it feels hard. The first thing to think about is that, remember, you've been containing anxiety. You've tried to contain, deflect, push away, repress, suppress the symptoms, the thoughts. You've tried to distract yourself desperately from them for weeks, months, and for most people who end up in the anxiety state, for years. So you've done, and you functioned okay for a lot of that time, perhaps. But you've got this strong, entrenched habit of trying to contain the anxiety, and that's what the body has learnt to do over many years for what it thought was a useful protection mechanism. We now know it was unnecessary. It learned to be overly hypervigilant when it didn't need to be, but that stemmed from, stuff from the past. We don't need to go into that today. But all you need to know is you've got this strong, entrenched habit of not allowing, not accepting. And so now you've read some books, you've watched my videos, and you're like, right, I know that allowing and accepting and floating, so through the anxiety, is the way to recovery. So congratulations, that's exactly what you need to do to recover. This is tackling the cause, not just dealing with symptoms. So, I just want to get you to pat yourselves on the back, even though it's really hard, you are doing the right thing in order to recover. But the reason why it's so hard and it feels so full on, scary, odd, is because this is so new to you. Remember, you've been trying to contain this thing that you've been so scared of for so long, that you haven't really understood for so long, that now you're trying to allow it. So the body is going to go into a bit of chaos. It's going to try and resist. It's going to try and activate the stress response, the flight or fight response, to get you to go back to containing mode. So you'll probably get new symptoms, or you'll become really aware of how much tension's in the system, because before you try to distract yourself. So you get a symptom and you sort of contain it, you push it away, but that requires a lot of energy and obviously ultimately contributes to your suffering. And your suffering before you started to allow, and yes, there's going to be some suffering whilst you start to allow as you form this new habit. So again, your heightened awareness of just how many thoughts there are, because you're no longer trying to contain them. You've taken the lid off the pressure cooker, as I talk about in another video. In another video, I talk about it's got to be hard work, because remember, you're forming a new habit. You're trying to reprogram a habit that you've had for such a long time. Now, that's why it feels so hard. And it does feel hard. It feels like the anxiety is getting worse. The anxiety is not getting worse. You're just allowing it and becoming more aware of it, which is unpleasant. And the body's going to naturally try and resist, because the old programs, the unhelpful, anxious programs, will try and reassert themselves and get you back to this hypervigilance mode, which we now know you don't need to do. You don't need to activate that. You know that anxiety on one level is highly unpleasant, but not serious. I've talked about that in other videos, so re-watch those if you need to. And so this is why you can start to, for the first time perhaps, start to allow it. You might be allowing it for 1 week, for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, and it feels really hard. You are getting moments of peace, so watch my video on You Always Get Peace. I think it's anxiety is a myth, that it's always constant and relentless. I think that's the title. So watch that one too, because you are getting moments of peace, even though it feels really hard. So don't let the bluff bluff you into thinking that it's all doom and gloom, it's all hard. Remember, you are suffering anyway. So yes, you might be suffering as you start to allow, and it becomes really uncomfortable, but that's what we have to do. We have to move through the discomfort as we move towards recovery. We can't just say, oh yeah, I'm going to feel the fear and it's going to be perfect. You're allowing the fear to come up, allowing the unpleasant thoughts, the unpleasant symptoms. So of course it has to be uncomfortable, but we have to be prepared to go through that and use our methods and the tools, the floating, the going loose, the sagging through the tension to help us do that. So again, the first thing is really to know that you're forming a new habit, so you have to expect it to be hard. You're suffering anyway, so yes, you might be suffering now, but in a different way, but this is the road to recovery. And so the more you practice, the more you allow over time, it will start to get easier as you start to build more confidence. As you see different moments through, a symptom comes up, you allow it as best you can, and that builds your confidence over time. And then over time, the symptoms start to become less severe as the brain realizes this is not serious. It sends them up less and with less intensity. Watch my videos on setbacks if that helps as well, because it's normal to hit setbacks as we go through the process. So again, it feels like it's getting worse, but it's not. It's because you're becoming more aware of it. The second thing is to think about is how you're practicing. And this is what I do a lot of work with people in coaching. I do a bit of a mini audit on how you're practicing because I can identify very quickly where people are going wrong. So if you are struggling, please do book in a coaching session and we can go through your practice so I can help you practice on the spot with me, but also help you see where you're going wrong. But I'll try and give you some pointers here. So often what people do is, and again, this is going to take a while before I get into it, this is going to take a while for you to perfect your practice to get it right. Because again, this is all new. We can't start to learn how to play a good tennis game and expect it to be perfect. It's going to be awkward. We're going to, start to improve our technique, but the ball's still going to hit the net for a while, or we're still going to hit it out. Even when we get the technique pretty well right, it's not going to be perfect. We're going to get caught out. We're not going to turn the shoulder or get our footwork right or get our grip right. It's the same with practicing. It's going to take time because this is all new. So you have to be patient with time. We know that we always get relief from these symptoms, even just for a moment or two, a few minutes, an hour, a day, 2 days, whatever, because the adrenaline fueling the thoughts, symptoms, etc., always dissipates. So we have to be patient with time. And so what we're trying to do then is when we're allowing, we want to ensure that we're not just sitting or focusing on the symptoms. Often what we do is we start, okay, I'm going to feel the heart racing. And then we kind of wait for it to go. All right, okay, thoughts come in, and then we start to think about the thoughts and try and feel good because we're allowing them, but that's not really allowing, that's getting involved in. So this is some of the subtleties of the practice I work through with people. We want to allow the thoughts as we move forward, as we go loose. We want to allow the heart racing, but we don't need to focus on it intensely and wait for it to stop. We never try and stop it. We allow the energy cycle behind the anxiety to peter out itself. Often we get confused on sitting with the symptoms and focusing on them, seeing where they're going. And if that works for you, great. But for a lot of people, it just brings up the intensity. What we're trying to do is allow them as we float above them. Do what you need to do, symptoms. Do what you need to do, thoughts. So again, it's the subtleties of the practice that can get people off because they're waiting for the symptoms to go. They're waiting for the thoughts to come and feel better, and they think that's facing and accepting, but it's not. Remember, this is not serious, so if the thought comes and it's unpleasant, that's okay. If the physical symptoms come and it's unpleasant, that's okay. So again, this is what I do a lot of work on with coaching for people so they can refine their practice and I can clearly identify where they're going wrong. Some people are waiting for symptoms to come before they practice. So there's many opportunities before the symptoms come or before the big thoughts or the big triggers come to practice. That's a lot of the work I do. I help people build their understanding and remind them why this is not serious. Can you explain to me why this is not serious? And we go through that because you need to remind yourself of that as you're practicing. Why is it important to let time pass? Because we know we'll always get relief. We always have done. Um, it's going to be hard work, and we should expect that. I remind clients of that as well. So again, feels like it's getting worse, but you're on the right track. And now the opportunity is to keep practicing and perfecting your practice over time through the videos. I've got that long 30-minute floating practice, which is there to support you through and do it. But you've also got access to me through coaching. So again, I hope that helps demystify, set realistic expectations of what's happening. Often what happens is we do it once and we're like, oh, this is great. Maybe this actually works. This stuff that Sam says works, and it goes away quickly. Then you've got the expectation up here that it needs to go away again, and it doesn't the next time because we were allowed the first time because we had no expectations. The second and third time we've got expectations, so we're not really allowing. So we have to allow whatever comes up, no matter how pleasant, because we know it's not serious and we know that eventually time will pass and we'll get relief. Going loose in your body is a way that I floated. I recommend floating, but you may have a different version of floating for you. Some people imagine themselves in a cloud floating above it. They might imagine themselves in the peace in the eye of the storm, and the winds of change or disturbance are blowing around them, but they're at peace in the middle as the symptoms come up and arise. So I help clients figure out what floating is to them, but also identify where they're going off track. I hope that helps. It's normal if you're feeling this. Again, good on you for putting the rubber to the road, getting into the nitty gritty and turning theory into practice. It's normal for it to be hard and bumpy, but you're on the right track. So please do pat yourself on the back. And I'm here if you've got any questions, obviously contact me direct or put a message in the comments and I'll do my best to get back to you. Okay, keep going. You will get there. Take care.